Good afternoon, everyone. It's James Carpenter with Country Living. I think the topic today is going to be something along the lines of managing your money. And what I mean by that is, are you a careless spender? Are you a penny pincher? What the case is. I personally have always felt that I was really good with money. I was very cautious on how I spent it and where I spent it. So throughout my life, I have always been fortunate to have what I call good jobs. And by that I mean higher paying jobs. And what I've done through my lifetime is I've learned how to look for the deals, because you guys, most of you already know me as the Habitat guy anyhow. I've done a lot with good deals. I've done a lot with barter, which can be good and it can be bad. So you got to be careful. If you do get into a bartering situation, make sure you're not getting taken advantage of. That would be my take on the matter. But the way I look at money is, especially back when I had hourly rate. So if you're going to purchase something and you look at the price, at that point, let's say the price is $27, and at your job you make $27 an hour. You look at that and then you got to consider, wow, do I really want that? That's a whole hour of wages for that little trinket there for $27. So you got to be cautious about your decisions on what you're going to buy. And I think what a lot of people get caught up in is they get caught up in that impulse buying, I guess would be the term. And they bring all this stuff home, and then what happens? It just sits around. It gathers dust for 4 or 5 years, and finally you end up throwing it away. And that's not a wise way to do things. So I have this theory that when you pass, you're not taking any of this stuff with you. So do you really need it? Now, for me, tools. That's probably my biggest thing is tools. I just like having tools, and I like having construction materials, and that's what my focus is on right now. But the majority of the tools were purchased on deals. And, like the other day I bought that shaper. And by the way, I cleaned it all up. It looks good. I ordered 2 new bits for it, $138. I paid $75 for the shaper, which was a good price, but $138 just to get the tongue and groove bits that I need for it. But as far as tools go, let's go with something as simple as hand tools, okay? You can go to a store and you can buy a ratchet and some sockets, and it's so much money. The best way that I found to buy tools is Sears Craftsman, for example. They got a 300-piece tool set for $2.99. All right, think about that logically. That's $1 a tool. And where you going to get that kind of deal? And another thing, if you want new tools, Harbor Freight. Do your homework. Make sure that the brand name is a decent brand name. You don't want to drag home a piece of junk. And Harbor Freight's got pretty good deals on tools. One thing that I never got into, you always see me in these videos wearing a t-shirt. I'm a pretty plain dresser. I don't need clothing that has Armor All or check marks or any of that nonsense. I am totally satisfied with shopping at Walmart for my clothing. So, and this kind of goes back to the paint I keep telling you about at Home Depot. They've got that oops section. Okay, well, somebody bought the paint, they didn't like the paint, they took the paint back. And I'm telling you, you can get it so cheap. A gallon of paint nowadays, good paint, is over $100. Now, if you can get that $100 gallon of paint for 10 or 15 bucks, the only difference is you didn't get to pick the color. But I'll tell you what, I'll live with the color they didn't like to save that much money on the paint. And then stuff like fasteners through Habitat. I got so many nuts, bolts, screws, and stuff around here, probably enough to build several homes. But I get it at such a bottom basement price that it's just a no-brainer to purchase it and store it. And obviously you've heard me talk in the past about being a prepper, so when the grid does go down, if it goes down, I've got a boatload of stuff around here that would be good to barter with. And you know, if times get hard, I shouldn't say when, because that implies it's going to happen. It is a possibility, but worst case scenario, when I leave this world, my kids are going to have access to all that. What they do with it, I have no clue. So another way that you can save money, and this works for me because I run an automobile repair shop. I drive older cars. Insurance is cheaper. You don't have to worry about where you park because door dings really don't matter, and things like that. Whereas if you want a new car just for the prestige of having a new car, you got that payment, your insurance payment's higher, and you got to be very careful about where you park it. If you're careless about that, you'll start getting scratches and door dings real fast. Money, it's what makes the world go around. It's what we use for the things we do. We spend our money, we get some kind of an object in return. And again, I'll go back to evaluate what you're purchasing. Ask yourself, do I really need it? And if you have even a hesitation, you don't need it. And let's take kids, for example. What do we want to do at Christmas? We want to give them a whole bunch of toys for Christmas, and they play with them over the day. And then what happens? They're laying around in their bedroom, or they're stacked in a corner or something like that. And eventually you're just getting rid of the stuff. So basically, what kind of example are we setting for the kid? The kid gets all this stuff for Christmas, and he starts thinking, oh, everything's free, and I should have this, and I should have that. You might be better off giving the kid less so that he respects it more. But I'm not here to tell you how to run your family. You do that however you want. I know what it's like to love your kids and want to see the best for them. And what I've noticed is that each generation gets a little bit more lax. We'll say, for example, let's use my parents. They came out of the Depression. They were hardcore. They were used to hard times, the whole 9 yards. They were very disciplined, hard workers. And then they started having kids, and they started thinking, oh, I don't want them to experience what I had to experience. So they try to make your life easier, and then that kind of snowballs, because then the next generation, you're trying to make it easier even more. And it gets to the point where you can produce non-productive citizens, to say the least. And that's an unfortunate thing. I'm not saying the way we grew up in the 50s and 60s was better than it is currently in 2025, but we did learn respect, and we did learn discipline, and we did learn work ethics, and all that has paid off throughout my lifetime. But to sum it all up, one, get a good job. If you're out there working for, I'm going to say 15, 18, some of you might be lucky you're getting 20, 21. Those jobs ain't cutting it today. You know, you need a job $30 and up just to make ends meet. And it takes you and your wife with good jobs. Now, some of you out there probably have college educations and landed a pretty decent salary level job somewhere, and you're not experiencing any of that. But there's a lot of people who are struggling. They're trying to make it on that little bitty paycheck, and every time they turn around, something else happens. The car breaks down, the furnace quits working. And when you're not making a lot of money, you can't just call the furnace repairman in there, because you know that's going to be a $300 ticket at minimum, and you can't afford that. So now you got to start looking for alternative ways to get things done. But I've seen a lot in my lifetime that way. I've put together, basically I'm on 6 acres right now. One deed is 4.5 acres. The other deed is 1.5 acres. That was my parents' house. I bought that out of the estate. And, you know, that doesn't come easy. Let me tell you about buying that house. This is a good little story, and then I'll let you go. So my dad died 10, 15 years later. My mom passed away, which was 4 or 5 years ago. And I was the executor of the estate. And I was working with the lawyer, and they said, we got to get where they come out and they evaluate a house and they give it a dollar value. We have to have that done. So what I did when the inspector came out to inspect the house to see what the value of the house is for the purposes of taxes and everything for the estate, I told the inspector, I said, man, this house has got some problems. I walked them through, before we ever started looking at the house, I walked them through, you know, it's an older farmhouse, and the walls, let's say had a door opening, the walls had cracks going up like this because the house is settling and the drywall's cracking. The well was put in the 70s. It was the old cast iron pipe. The well was basically junk. It needed a new well. And the electrical, even though my dad was an electrician, why he did this I'll never know. He left the cover off the panel box, and he set it on the floor, and it probably sat there for 30 years. Well, it rusted out and rusted away, so there's no cover on the electrical wiring. So I took him down in the basement. I said, look at this mess here. And the inspector basically said, you know, from what I'm seeing here with the structural damage and everything, we're going to have to we'll condemn the house. And what happened when they condemned the house? I purchased the house and the 1.5 acres for $50,000. Okay. All of you out there know that right now you're not going to buy a house for $300,000, $400,000, $700,000, $1 million, $2 million. All depends on your income level. But I got that house at a bargain price, $50,000. I had to take out a small loan, but I paid it off in just a very few short years. So it's got a clear deed on the property. I went in and I completely rehabbed it. It had carpet in it from the 70s, that old shag carpet. I went in, ripped out all the carpet, actually ripped the floor out of the living room and supported the floor joists and then put new flooring down. I put tile throughout the house, a tile countertop in the kitchen, painted all the walls, and with the tile floor, it was very clean in there. That old shag carpet was pretty nasty stuff. It was old and who knows what was living in it. But anyhow, that was just an example of how you can spend your money wisely. Okay, with that being said, I want you to have a great weekend. This is Friday. Thank you, and good night.